Wake up, workers and comrades, let's cut through the propaganda once again. Today we're going to talk about the American labor movement and the fight against exploitation. Let's speak plainly. Nothing was given to workers. Everything was taken. The weekend? Workers fought for it. The 8-hour workday? Workers fought for it. Safety laws, child labor bans, overtime pay? All won through blood, strikes, and mass resistance. And every time workers fought back, the ruling class responded with violence, police repression, corporate union busting, and government collusion. Today we're breaking down the history of worker resistance, the power of general strikes, the victories unions have won, and why the modern labor movement is more important than ever. Capitalism is built on exploitation. Bosses maximize profits by squeezing as much labor as possible from workers while paying as little as they can get away with. In the early days of industrial capitalism, conditions were brutal. 14 to 16-hour workdays were standard. No safety regulations. Factory fires, collapsed mines, and lost limbs were just part of the job. Children as young as 5 were sent to work in mills, mines, and sweatshops. If you were injured or killed, you were replaced. No compensation. This wasn't a flaw of capitalism, it was the default. And when workers dared to resist, they were met with police batons, company thugs, and military force. But they fought back anyway. Workers quickly learned that alone they were powerless, but together they could shut down entire industries. They demanded shorter workdays, safer conditions, and fair pay. And when their demands were ignored, they struck. The ruling class didn't just refuse their demands. They used police, private security, and even the military to crush worker uprisings. In 1877, the Great Railroad Strike exploded after wage cuts. Workers seized rail lines and fought National Guard troops in the streets. In 1892, the Homestead Strike. Steel workers armed themselves against Pinkerton thugs hired by Carnegie Steel. In 1912, the Lawrence Textile Strike, led by immigrant women, won better wages after police beat, jailed, and deported strikers. Whenever workers threatened profits, the state responded with violence. The Haymarket Massacre of 1886, striking workers in Chicago were gunned down by police for demanding an 8-hour day. The Ludlow Massacre of 1914, Colorado National Guard troops machine-gunned striking miners and burned their families alive in Rockefeller-owned company towns. The Battle of Blair Mountain, 1921, 10,000 coal miners faced off against police, company guards, and aerial bombings in one of the largest labor uprisings in U.S. history. Bosses never grant workers rights out of kindness. Workers seize them through collective action. Every single labor victory was won through direct action. The 8-hour workday? After decades of strikes and mass protests, the demand for an 8-hour workday became law. Child labor bans. Labor militancy forced governments to pass child labor protections in the 1930s, minimum wage and Social Security. Workers organized, struck, and forced the government to create the first labor protections in the New Deal. The rise of public sector unions. Teachers, postal workers, and city employees organized massive strikes in the 1960s and 70s, winning pensions, job security, and livable wages. At their peak in the mid-20th century, unions forced higher wages, pensions, and job security. But the ruling class never stopped fighting back. Starting in the 1970s, corporations, billionaires, and their political allies launched a full-scale assault on unions. They offshored jobs to break industrial unions. They pushed right-to-work laws to weaken collective bargaining. They deregulated industries, increasing corporate control over wages and conditions. The result? Union membership plummeted, from 35% of the workforce in the 1950s to less than 10% today. Wages stagnated, while CEO pay skyrocketed. Workers in the richest country on earth are living paycheck to paycheck, while billionaires hoard trillions. But workers are fighting back. Have you ever worked for a company that tried to crush worker organizing? Tell us your experience in the comments. Despite decades of corporate attacks, we are seeing a new era of labor organizing. Amazon workers have organized some of the largest union drives in modern history, despite brutal corporate repression. Starbucks baristas have unionized over 300 stores nationwide, sparking a new wave of retail organizing. UPS workers won historic wage increases by threatening to strike, proving that direct action still works. Tech workers, video game developers, and gig economy workers are organizing for better conditions in industries that have never been unionized before. And what happens every time workers organize? The same old tricks. Union-busting campaigns, firing pro-union employees, and bringing in police to arrest strikers. The most powerful weapon workers have is the general strike. In 1919, the Seattle General Strike shut down the city. Businesses collapsed under worker control. In 1936, the Flint sit-down strike forced General Motors to recognize auto worker unions by seizing the factories. In 1968, the Memphis sanitation strike linked civil rights with economic justice, showing that worker struggles are deeply tied to social justice movements. The labor struggle never ended. The same battles of the past are happening right now. At Starbucks, Amazon, in Hollywood, in warehouses, schools, and hospitals. Workers don't win by asking nicely. They win by organizing, striking, and fighting back. If you support the labor movement, say something in the comments. If you want to see workers take power back, like this video and share it. And if you're a worker, it's time to get involved. Join a union, support striking workers, educate yourself on labor rights. Because once enough of us stand up and fight, the ruling class won't be able to stop us. Until next time, comrades, stay sharp, stay organized, and never stop fighting for the working class.